Okay, so the first question, most obvious one, is how did you end up in the IT industry?
So I think growing up in India back in the 90s, there were really only two career tracks that most people pursued. It was either engineering or being a doctor. Luckily for me, I was naturally drawn to STEM, math, and mostly a logical thinker. So pursuing engineering made it a natural choice for me. From there, I went on to work at a tech company called Tata Unisys at the time, and they actually sent me on a work assignment to the US. That's how my career in the IT industry really started.
Okay, and in terms of that start to where you are at ServiceMax today, how many sort of steps along the way have there been?
Sure. So once I came to the US, I worked in various tech roles, both like customer facing solutions role, where I would go into a customer site, understand their requirements and put in place a solution for them. I got into product development, tech lead roles, and I worked through a lot of different startups. So one of the startups that I was working at was acquired by Documentum EMC at the time, and they were starting to set up this engineering program management function in the company. And my manager at the time thought I had the right set of kind of technical and soft skills to make me successful in that role. And so he asked me, would you be interested in this kind of role? Little did I know what I was getting into, but I was ready for a challenge. So I took that on. I started with kind of engineering program managing a small part of a project, the entire project, all the projects for that business unit. And I steadily climbed that, kind of expanded my roles and responsibilities. I've held kind of leadership engineering program management roles at various companies like eMeter, which is a Siemens business, SAP Ariba, Marketo, GE Digital. And most recently at ServiceMax, it's really given me the opportunity to expand even beyond engineering program management. I've been able to take on things that I've never really explored before, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm also in charge of AWS infrastructure operations. I manage R&D budget for the entire ServiceMax R&D team. I also look after the technical product education teams, the training and the documentation. So ServiceMax has just been wonderful, where it's given me a lot of opportunities to expand and learn new things and skills.
Okay, so and during that sort of career path, in terms of encountering challenges, I suspect that most careers we bump into certain things. Would you describe most of those as just normal sort of work related, or were you aware that at any stage your gender was, if not an obstacle, at least it was, something of an issue when it came to either applying for a job or once you were in a company, trying to fulfill your job role?
Right. So I think I, of course, face the regular growing pains that anybody faces in this sort of transition from an individual contributor to a leadership, where you're learning a lot of new things and skills. But I think more than the professional challenges, it was the personal challenges that were really the hard ones. For example, when I had my first son in this country where we had no family to support us, with both me and my spouse working full time, with him being on a consulting job that would take him out of the house for the whole week. It was a very rough period for me, trying to juggle work, small baby, and just constant lack of sleep and tiredness. And there were days where I thought of quitting and kind of thinking, was this even worth it? The other challenge that I've faced is also kind of coming to terms with the constant sense of guilt that you have as a working mom, where you're not spending enough time with your kids. But as my kids have grown up, they're now like teenagers off to college and stuff. I've realized that having a career-oriented mom has actually made them more independent and also made them more aware of gender inequalities, especially for my daughter, who is a 16-year-old and aspires to pursue the STEM field. I hope I'm a good role model that she can look up to and also surpass one day.
Okay, and in terms of the sort of the challenges in terms of overcoming them, did most of that come from within yourself, or have you been fortunate to have valuable work colleagues, your boss, or just someone alongside you to help you, and whether it's, as you say, with the guilt thing, whether it's just to help you realize that it's no need to feel guilty, or just generally help you work through any problems you might have had.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I think it's truly, they say, right, it takes a village. So it's been a lot of things. I am very lucky and fortunate to have a very supportive partner. So once we started discussing the challenges that we were facing, we kind of figured out where it makes sense to maybe hire more help, have a support system in place that would let me go to work with at least a certain peace of mind and bring my whole self to work, right? So we kind of started making those changes, supportive colleagues at work, being able to talk to someone. I also realized that you really need to spend the time to take care of yourself mentally and physically. So finding something that you like to do outside of work, whether it's yoga, walking, going to the gym, and doing it consistently is really very important for your overall mental and physical health, and to kind of take you through everything you have to deal with.
Okay, and in terms of the sort of changes, obviously your career has evolved, you've worked at a lot of different companies, so you may have encountered different cultures along the way, but overall, have you noticed a sort of positive change in terms of the diversity aspect of your workplaces, or not? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say for sure, right? Like I remember like growing up or early on in my career, I would be in the minority. Many times I would be the only woman in the room, at the table, and many professional occasions. But I've seen that change over a period of time, and it's very refreshing to see more and more women take up roles in the IT industry. And a lot of it has to do with this conscious effort that's happening across society, across companies, where they're consciously making an effort to address the gender inequalities, put in place policies that will help with, for example, pregnancy discrimination or those kind of things. And so I see more and more women in the tech industry, which is really great. I think one area where we do still have a ways to go with is seeing women in leadership roles, so that there are more role models for the younger women to kind of look up to and know where they can get in their careers.
And in terms of yourself, I mean, it sounds like you've worked your way up to quite a senior role now. So do you find yourself using your sort of position of seniority to help move that diversity debate forward, in terms of whether it's hiring or just working alongside some of your employees to help them understand that they're not alone in some of their problems, etc.? Is that something you're able to do?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that I do is, at least when I'm hiring, I consciously make an effort to have interview at least more, if not more, at least equal number of women and men candidates for every role that's open. I also make it a habit to kind of talk about the struggles and journeys that I have been through with a lot of my women colleagues, peers, or even members of my team, and kind of also tell them that they don't have to be so hard on themselves, right? Because I don't know, as women, we seem to be wired a certain way where we take on a more than fair share of our responsibilities, and also are really hard on ourselves for the decisions that we end up making along the way. So I try to share my experience and kind of tell them that it's okay, we're human, and this is what I have been through and things that have helped me. For example, any new woman who's having babies, I tell them you need to get a nanny and you need to make sure that you have that support system, because I learned it the hard way. So I try to at least impart as much as I've learned to people who are willing to listen.
And in terms of things that can be done to improve the situation, I think we probably all recognize that things have moved and in a positive direction, but the pace of the change is perhaps not what it might be. Are there any things that you bump into in your work life is you think, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could do this, or isn't it about time we stopped this old-fashioned practice, or whatever? Just any thoughts as to how things might be changed for the better?
Yeah, I agree with you that we've come a long ways, but we also have a lot to do, because I feel like it starts like at the grassroots level. There are programs, and it's going to take time to see the impact of those programs, but we have to continue to invest in inspiring young women in elementary, middle, and high schools to pursue careers in STEM. And that's really going to get the talent pool up, because that's where most of the problems today lie, in how much women talent pool we have in the tech industry. So really at the grassroots level, we need to continue doing a good job and giving women, like all these Girl Who Codes and all these organizations are doing a fabulous job, but it really needs to reach, have a more outreach at a and make it part of the school system, so to speak, so that we have a bigger pool. And then secondly, I think a lot of policies, which again, I think have improved a lot, because I look back when I had my son, I was back to work in 8 weeks, just because that was the leave policy at the time. Now things are a lot better. A mom can spend more time with the newborn and stuff like that. But we really, as a society and company policies, need to put in place policies that will help these young women stay in the tech career and not quit because of work-life imbalance, so to speak. Because again, that's how the talent pool towards leadership roles is going to increase, by really encouraging that kind of policies. And then seeing more women in leadership roles is something we also have to consciously work towards.
Just in terms of that education piece, I'm intrigued, because I think certainly the workplace, that the message around diversity is loud and clear and being acted upon at various paces, I guess. But in the school system, I'm interested, because you're relying on quite a traditional industry again there, I suppose, and where often the male teacher is the science teacher or the IT teacher, etc. So do you think there's a corresponding need for the education? And I'm sorry, just also, it might not be obvious you need diversity, because obviously in a lot of co-education schools, there are equal numbers of boys and girls, so no one's going to look and think, oh, this is a weird. But in terms of the choices they make around what subjects to do you think there needs to be some education and encouragement amongst the teachers to not reinforce, shall we say, the traditional stereotype, but really do try and promote the STEM subjects for the girls at school as well?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. You're absolutely right. I think growing up, I can probably count the number of female teachers in the STEM field that I had, and I think it's very patchy. For example, if you live in an affluent neighborhood and your kid goes to a good school, then there's a higher chance of you seeing female role model teachers who are going to kind of encourage you to pursue STEM fields, but that's not the case across the board. So I think that's where we need to do more, where that kind of, and it doesn't even have to be female teachers, right? I think there has to be a conscious effort and from even male teachers to kind of encourage girls to pursue STEM field. And that's, I think, has been one of the strong points for me. Like most of my champions in my professional support system have been males. Like they've always been there for me, kind of telling me that, oh, you're really good and you need to go and try this out, or giving me advice. So I think there's a lot we can do as a society, and encouraging girls and women to pursue STEM, giving them equal access to all the options that they have. I see my daughter's school doing like women in engineering sessions, where we live close to the Tesla factory. They got to go and visit the Tesla factory, where she got to see women engineers actually working on all these. And that was I could see the change in perspective even from her experiencing that. So I think those kind of experiences, the more we can give at the grassroots level, at the elementary, middle, and high school level, is going to make the girls believe that they can actually pursue a STEM career.
And maybe just extending that point, do you think parents have again, perhaps traditional parents, they're just thinking like, blokes go and do all these sort of, scientific physics and chemistry and that stuff, and women do sort of artistic subjects. That's historically been, the outlook. So do you think, again, parents need to understand more? And, I'm not saying it's the case, but, almost sometimes they might have been embarrassed, oh, my daughter wants to be a scientist. It's like, how do I deal with this? Because that's a bit unusual. Her friends don't want to be. So do you think there needs to be an education piece around that as well? Just getting parents to accept, understand that the IT industry, I mean, part of it is an incredibly exciting and diverse industry in terms of all the opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think parents play a big role. Like, I don't think I would have been where I am without the support from my parents. Like, I know of many women or girls in India of my similar career path where they were actually held back because they were women and their parents didn't want them going and working outside the country or pursuing a tech career. So I think that parents play a very important role, and you're right, we need to educate parents and try to break the stereotypes that we've built around ourselves with this whole artistic versus scientific versus, and just kind of really look at what your child is capable of and likes to do and figure out a career path based on those, rather than saying this because you're a girl you can pursue these fields, you're a boy. And I think a lot has changed. Like, I know again, growing up, a lot of it was you do more home economics and those kind of things and not so much tech, but I see more and more women in the tech industry. But parental support, I would say, plays a big part, and educating parents would be would play a big role in this.
And yeah, it just struck me as well while we're talking that schooling wise, again, it might have changed anyway since my day, which was quite a while ago, but you tended fairly early on in life to have to choose either, the arts or the sciences. And anyone who wanted to do sort of, maths and history and English literature was kind of like, cast into the darkness because nobody mixed the two. I don't know, is there more flexibility now? Or if there isn't, certainly should there be that to allow someone to do physics and, French and English literature or history, just so that they aren't closing themselves off too early on?
I absolutely think that there is more flexibility. The number of choices that the generation today has in terms of career choices is vast. And I actually got a small glimpse of it when my son was applying to college. So I know we have heard a lot of STEAM, but now there's a acronym called STEAM, which means STEM with arts. And then there are also, I think, a lot of role models. If you read like Steve Jobs' biography, right? He says that the best inventions come when it's at the intersection of engineering and art. So I think there's a lot of emphasis on the combination of arts and emphasis today. Like my daughter, she is a ballerina, so she does ballet, but at the same time, she's really interested in the tech field, and she's learned programming, and she does a lot. So I feel like the whole perspective has changed now, and we're not siloing people into doing this. They don't have to choose between one or the other. That they see that they can do both and really be happy about it and be fulfilling and rewarding.
Okay, no, that's good. And maybe just as we finish off, if there was, I don't know, one or two things obviously you think could be introduced to assist the sort of move towards equality and full-on diversity. I think obviously you've mentioned that the schooling, which has been a common theme, starting early, but any other thoughts as to what else might be done?
Yeah, I think the one thing, if I had to change, would be almost mandating that we interview an equal number of men and women for every tech role that is open. Because like I said, that whole getting that talent pool up and helping the young women move up the ladder and get into leadership roles is the only way we are kind of even going to get to a sense of close the gender gap, so to speak. So I think that's one tangible thing that companies can actually do to make a huge difference.
Okay. Well, it's been brilliant to chat to you. I appreciate you giving me the time. So, Pallavi, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.